They've told the ABC of their frantic efforts to save their son in the chaos after the terrifying blast. Survivors who filmed the explosion have also told their stories. Adam Harvey has this exclusive report.
This was the moment one young couple's big day became their nightmare.
It was the end of mankind. I didn't know what was happening, just that this day isn't meant to be like this.
A smaller explosion just before the main blast had grabbed the city's attention. So many people were filming as a huge cache of ammonium nitrate detonated in a dockside warehouse.
I don't even know if I jumped or if they pushed me, but what I noticed the next second is that, or I don't know how long time after, that I was on the floor.
An Australian family lived just 700 metres from ground zero. UN worker Sarah Copland and her husband Craig Ohlers are speaking about their ordeal for the first time to Four Corners.
It's so beyond imagination. And I just remember I was just screaming, my baby, help my baby.
2-year-old Isaac Ohlers had been wounded by flying glass. His parents fought through the chaos to get him to hospital.
Anytime we got to an intersection, I was screaming at everyone to get out of the way.
An emergency team worked on Isaac for over an hour, but he couldn't be saved. His parents had tried to leave Beirut before the explosion because of coronavirus, but the first tickets available to Australia were for 3 weeks after the blast. They're now finally back in Perth, awaiting the birth of a baby boy. Adam Harvey, ABC News.
Well, let's return to US politics. And Donald Trump's running mate took to the stage this week for the first and only vice presidential debate. He took on former attorney Senator Kamala Harris in what was a much calmer affair than last week's presidential showdown.
After last week's potentially tainted debate, greater precautions were taken tonight. Plexiglass barriers separated the pair and everyone wore a mask. Unlike their running mates' showdown, there was a sense of decorum, but punches weren't pulled.
American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country.
We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth.
Other issues like climate change, police brutality and the Supreme Court nomination also featured. But the thrust of the evening focused on the pandemic crisis at hand and its economic toll.
The fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine is unconscionable.
If the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it, absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
With the White House in chaos, Kamala Harris entered with a political tailwind. She played it safe, showing she could be tough while also empathetic. Mike Pence went in on the back foot, forced to paint a rosy picture of a modern America. No easy feat when more than 210,000 of his fellow countrymen have lost their lives.
Well, let's take a closer look at the Vice President's career. Mike Pence has kept a low profile since taking office in 2016, but he's known as a fervently religious and strong Conservative. Here's Philip Williams.
Vice President Pence was picked by Donald Trump for his deeply conservative political and religious connections.
So help me God.
Whatever Donald Trump says or does, Mike Pence is supportive. The grey foil to a flamboyant and impulsive president.
Thank you very much.
What we saw is somebody incredibly careful, incredibly cautious, does not take an awful lot of action. Somebody who is very opaque. We do not get a lot of insight into his operations.
Is adultery no longer a big deal in Indiana and in America?
The man who at any moment could be president has a long history as a conservative broadcaster.
I, for one, believe that the seventh commandment, contained in the 10 Commandments, is still a big deal.
The evangelical Christian turned to politics, often describing himself as a Christian, a conservative and a Republican in that order.
It's a good turn of phrase for a politician. It's also pretty inaccurate because what he is foremost is a politician.
As the president said many times, we're all in this together.
The vice president was given the unenviable job of heading the White House coronavirus task force, a period in which more Americans have died of the disease than any other country, 210,000, and rising by 1,000 a day. When even a sick president won't adhere to the mask guidelines, Mike Pence remains silent, though some on his task force have spoken out.
If I don't get an immune response, the vaccine's not going to protect me. This face mask will.
Throughout Donald Trump's often turbulent reign, his vice president has remained ever the loyal deputy.
Now it's Mike Pence's turn in the spotlight as he takes on Kamala Harris in the first and only vice presidential debate. If he does well, it may be his calling card for the Republican nomination for the top job come 2024. Or immediately, the quiet man, the spare, stands ready to step in just in case Donald Trump's recovery falters. Philip Williams, ABC News, Washington.
Well, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange will have to wait until early next year to find out if he'll be transferred to the United States to face espionage charges. His 4-week extradition hearing has heard allegations of spying, bugging and poisoning. Europe correspondent Linton Besser has more from London.
What we essentially watched was Julian Assange's legal team put forward a very big public interest argument as to why what WikiLeaks did 10 years ago was of enormous public benefit, not necessarily to Australia or certainly to Britain, but to the entire world, the kind of revelations that he published that advanced the collective knowledge on the activities of the United States military and intelligence community in their kind of overseas adventures in the Middle East. And really the first kind of half of all of the evidence that was put forward attempted to put into context what it meant that the world could, for the first time really, peek behind the curtain of the vast United States government's military apparatus in the Middle East via the thousands of documents that WikiLeaks published. And it was a big reminder actually that it was thanks to WikiLeaks that we got the first hard evidence of the existence of CIA black sites, of the policies of rendition, of torture being sanctioned, of indeed a secret assassination program being run by the United States government. And you tend to forget really how revelatory that was. It was also, I think, quite compelling to see on the other side of the bar table, the United States government simply remind the judge that the law being tested in this case is not a criminal trial. It's the Extradition Act in Britain, which doesn't seek to find the truth or falsity of any of the charges against Julian Assange, whether what he did in publishing this information was criminal. It simply reminded the court that that is for an American courtroom to hear, and really all that Judge Vanessa Baraitser needed to satisfy herself was whether it was fair and just to send Julian Assange to America to face that trial.
And that report ends the program. You can head to the ABC's World News page for all the latest international headlines and join me on The World weeknights on the ABC News channel. I'm Bev O'Connor. Thanks for your company. Bye-bye.